and welcome to High Powered Insights. I'm Marissa Keisler, and I lead marketing, communications, and brand development here at Proterra. And today we have a very special episode of High Powered Insights because it is Earth Day, and we are celebrating Earth Day, and we're celebrating Earth Day pretty much all week long here at Proterra. And today I am joined by Lea. So I'll let Lea introduce herself, kind of tell us what you do here at Proterra, and then we'll get into what we're going to talk about today.
Hi, I'm Lea. I am over environmental compliance and sustainability at the plant level, and I also do continuous improvement here.
Lea is basically a Wonder Woman, and she does all the things sustainability. So today we are going to talk a bit about sustainability and basically how we can have real environmental impacts, not just here at Proterra, but we'll also give you some tips that you can use at home to also have some real environmental impact as well. So let's start with something we've been doing a while now, I think. Maybe you can talk about how long we've been doing it. But we have a composting program. We do this at both our California location, but also here in our South Carolina location.
Yes.
So maybe you can kind of kick us off with a little bit about what that composting program is.
Yeah, so here at our Greer facility, we have on-site composting bins out back. We started that in September or October of last year, so we've had it going about 6 months now, and it's going really well. We do vermicomposting, so that means that we have worms in the system. And that
sounds a little gross, but is that normal? Is that?
Yeah, so we actually decided to go that option because the worms help it break down faster. And since we're adding more compost than you probably normally would at home, that's important for us to be able to break it down faster and turn it over faster.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, we do about 60 pounds of compost a month here, and it's going really well for us so far.
Wow, I know. I see people using the composting, and I see people now be really conscious in their decision to not just throw everything into the trash. For me, I definitely am always trying to say, okay, I know this orange peel goes in the composting, and we even have compostable utensils, and we have cups that are compostable. And so we're really trying to be sustainable kind of all around. Maybe what's something that you see that people do that you didn't realize that they would get out of this a little bit? Like, do you see people that you wouldn't have normally seen be excited about being able to be sustainable doing it?
Yeah, definitely. One of the biggest things that we did, I think, that helped our employees understand the importance of the composting was the posters that you helped me make. It was a really good visual, so we hung them up over the actual composting bins where employees throw their waste away. And it talks about the life cycle of a banana peel, and it walks our employees through that just a simple banana peel has a whole nother life after you compost it. And really the cool thing about composting that I think our employees didn't realize is that that banana peel goes into soil that you might grow a tomato plant in. And then if you compost that tomato when you're done with it, that tomato begins a new life as soil again. And so it really is a regenerative process. And it just keeps giving back if you continue to do it over and over again.
Yeah. Well, speaking of tomatoes, I want to talk about what we're actually doing here at the facility, which, by the way, if you haven't noticed, Lea and I are actually sitting outside on this lovely, beautiful South Carolina weather day, right outside of our battery manufacturing facility, because it feels absolutely wonderful out here. And it would feel a little weird doing an Earth Day podcast, not outside, right?
Yes.
Enjoying the beautiful sunshine. But the tomato, we are actually starting a salsa garden here at the facility. So maybe you can talk about how we decided to do that, and are we using the composting soil to do that as well?
Yeah, so we were talking about when we started the composting bins, well, what are we going to do with the compost once it's ready? So one of the things that we're going to do is to, again, help our employees visualize the whole process behind this, is we're going to take the compost and actually use it to fill up our raised planting beds, which we made out of old shipping crates that we no longer use. So
very creative.
We kind of gave them a glow up and painted them and built legs for them to turn them into raised beds. So we're going to fill those up with our compost soil. and plant a salsa garden. And we really just came to a salsa garden because we wanted something fun that our employees would enjoy. And I think almost everybody enjoys salsa.
Who doesn't?
Um, and tomatoes were actually one of the number one plants that
Okay.
employees requested be in the garden.
Ah.
So I started thinking about it and I'm like, tomatoes, salsa, it'll work.
Well, I cannot wait to have a salsa party at the end of
Yes.
this because I know we have a lot of really good cooks here at Proterra, and I am
Yes.
excited to see what people come up with. So, what goes into a salsa garden? So, besides the tomatoes, what else are we planting?
So we're gonna have everything start to finish that you need to make salsa, and I already have some planned additions for next year. That it was a little bit late to start this year, but we're gonna have the tomatoes that we already talked about. We're gonna have cilantro.
Ooh,
We're gonna have two different kinds of peppers. So we're gonna have jalapenos and serrano peppers, um, and we're also going to have some onions,
okay.
and we're gonna have a little lime tree.
Oh, I am obsessed with lime. So, I am very excited about that.
Yes, and next year, so you plant garlic in the fall, which I did not come up with
Oh,
this idea until the middle of winter. So I'm gonna get some garlic started in the fall. So we'll
okay.
have the full, complete salsa recipe ready to go.
That's exciting. So, we're going to maybe like turn this into like a year round type thing as well.
Yeah.
Okay, which I definitely have tried to plant a lime tree at home and have failed. So maybe this will help me be a better gardener at home. Do you have any maybe
Yes.
tips of how we can take what we're doing here and bring it home, and maybe what that means to be a little bit more sustainable in gardening at home?
Yeah, I think the key is to start small. Like, we have the capacity to have done a larger garden, but this is something that we've never done before, and we don't really know how it's going to go.
Yep.
So, we just wanted to start small, and that was another thing that kind of led us to the salsa garden. So, I would say at home, just start small. Even if you just put a few pots on your back deck
Oh
or
yeah.
on your patio, something like that, even just an herb garden that you can do inside by a window or on your countertop. Small actions really add up and make a difference.
Okay. Yeah, that's a really good idea. Maybe I shouldn't have tried to go with a full lime tree to start with, but maybe next time I'll start with a few herbs, maybe some arugula or something a little fun that can go in like a pot or something.
Yeah.
I think that could be helpful. But I think I might take some tips from watching other people garden. I'm pretty sure my mother and my grandparents, I literally grew up gardening
Yeah.
on land, and they would be probably ashamed of my abilities now as an adult. But maybe we'll learn a few lessons along the way. This kind of makes me think too, just this is also like a really efficient way of maybe having a little bit less like food waste. Like I know
Yeah.
whenever I go to the grocery store, I'm like sometimes buying salad mix or even herbs, and they end up like going in the fridge,
Mhm.
but then I kind of forget they exist, and I might be throwing them away, which is horrible. And then I should probably be composting to help with that. But maybe let's talk a little bit about how we can be more sustainable, just because I think about just how we live at home. Can we be more sustainable in the way that we grocery shop, in the way adding like a few pots here and there, and gardening? But is there tips and tricks that we can have at home to maybe eliminate some food waste?
Yeah. So, food waste is actually one of the biggest contributors to landfill waste.
Oh wow.
So, one of the ways to reduce that is by composting, like we just talked about, because that keeps it out of the landfill. But another way is exactly what you said, and that is reducing the overall food that you're using or planning, is just reducing it at its source. So, I would say meal planning
Okay.
is a really good way to do that. So, when you're planning out your food for the week, think about ways that you can use ingredients in multiple ways. So, if you're going to have broccoli, maybe you can put that in a salad. Maybe you can use it in stir fry, and just different ways to use things.
Okay.
I would also say take advantage of your freezer.
Yes.
So a lot of things freeze very well. So plan ahead, and if things like bread, vegetables, anything like that, even meals that you've cooked, separate them out into portions that you can just easily thaw and make. Your future self will really
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Yes, I think that it's funny. I've actually just recently, in the last probably like 6 months, really gotten into meal prepping, and
hmm
I freeze a ton. Like I'll make a lot of food, say like in my crock pot, and then try to like portion it out
Yep.
into little portions and put them in the freezer. And it
Yes.
definitely helps because sometimes I get bored of eating the same thing over and over and over in the same
Mhm.
week. But if I have things frozen, then I can like swap it up, which I did recently learn. Like
Yes.
you can actually freeze even like chopped greens and things like
Mhm.
that, which was a challenge for me keeping like spinach fresh or kale or whatever it is fresh, right? So maybe are there like ways that you would go about, or even sustainable ways that you would go about with freezing and meal prepping? I know there's a lot of like different like containers or things that we
Mhm.
could use. Maybe like the silicone little like pop out cubes. Are those sustainable? And instead of trying to use like too many like plastic bags and just like what are ways that we can be sustainable even in that practice?
Yeah, definitely. I love the idea of the silicone like ice cube trays because you see a lot of times you'll go to the store and they'll have like the containers that have the garlic
Mm-hmm.
or the ginger chopped up. You can do that with any spice or
Ah,
green or anything like that. Chop it up. You can even put like a little bit of water or olive oil in there with it
okay.
and freeze it. And then when you need minced garlic, instead of cutting it up, because we all know mincing garlic is a nightmare,
Such a pain.
um, you can just pop it out into your
Oh,
pan
yeah.
and use it that way. So that's actually something that I do, and it's really helpful to me. And yeah, using the reusable trays is even the reusable silicone bags,
Mm. Oh, yes, I
or
love those.
yeah, or if you're using plastic bags, you don't have to get rid of them after one use. If you're gonna chop up onions and freeze them, if you use the onions, chop up more onion and put more onion back in that same bag.
Yep.
Just keep reusing.
So it's really kind of about somewhat just being intentional and
Mhm.
thinking about it before we do it. Like you don't have to go all in at one time. It's like making
Right.
slow little changes over time that we can each kind of start contributing to a little bit more of like a sustainable lifestyle, right?
Right. You don't have to be perfect. You just want to make small changes that are actually sustainable to you that you can stick with because that's what matters. Sometimes I feel like if you try to make too many changes at once, you may get overwhelmed and not stick with it.
Yeah, that is so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like sustainability can mean a whole lot of things. It's not
Right.
just sustainability from the respect of maybe the composting, but it's like how can we live sustainably and make sure that the practices that we're actually putting in place we can continue long term because that's going to be a much greater impact than if we try to
Right.
do something for a month and then we just can't stick with it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
So maybe what are some tricks that we can do? So I don't have like a composter at home, right?
Mhm.
But it's something that I've kind of been thinking about. Like, what are ways that we can do that? Are there things that can we take food somewhere, or
Mhm.
are there little things that we can do at home for composting? What's like a advice that you would give somebody?
Yeah, so I was actually thinking it would be fun to do what we did last time and put together a shopping list.
Oh, yes.
Because there are some really affordable home composting bins on Amazon
Okay.
for whatever you want to do. If you just want to start really small, put it on your countertop at home. They've got options for that.
Okay.
If you want to do something a little larger and put it on your back deck or put it in your backyard, there's options for that as well. But then if you just don't want to mess with it at all and want to let somebody else do the work. We also have community drop offs that are
Oh,
local to here in the area.
okay.
So we can link those as well. And then also, if you're not local to this area, we encourage you to research that in your area because that's another great option that a lot of communities have for people.
Yeah, I don't actually think I realized that we had like community drop offs for things like that. That's really cool.
Right. Yeah, we actually have several in the area. So that's something really nice that's available to us. And it kind of takes the pressure off of you
Yes.
and having it at your home, especially if you live in like an apartment or something like that. And maybe it's not as
Counter space isn't quite as
right.
like available. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. I love the idea of putting a shopping list together. Yeah, maybe we can even like link some eco-friendly and the silicone bags and some
Yeah.
of the little freezer tips and tricks and things like that. Are there any other kind of sustainable practices or maybe gardening tricks, tips that you want to share with us?
Yeah, I think it's really important to think about, and again, going back to being intentional, I have been guilty of it before. I just want to plant all the stuff and do all the things, and then I end up not using it. And it just becomes food for the deer and the rabbits, which I guess
Which they
is
like too, I guess.
It's fine. That supports the environment too. But I think just really being intentional and
Okay.
thinking about what it is you're actually going to use, and also not over planting.
Yes.
So kind of thinking about if you're only going to need 1 or 2 cilantro plants rather than, 6 or 7. And then also thinking about something that's actually going to be maintainable for you to keep up on, and not making it, you don't have to till up your whole backyard to turn it into a garden if you're not going to stay on top of it. So I think, if you just want to do a small planter box on your back porch, or a couple of pots, or like I mentioned earlier, even a small herb garden, that's what I do at home because I use a lot of herbs and it's just really easy for me to maintain. So I think just being intentional about it.
Okay. So it kind of goes back to like what's sustainable for your life, your
Yes.
lifestyle, what you can maintain as well. That actually makes me think of, we did a seed swap as well
Yes.
recently, which is something else we kind of were doing for Earth Day and celebrating as well, where employees brought different seeds and we all kind of swapped around, which I think about, our local library actually has free seeds. You can get cucumber plants, you can get zucchini. It kind of like depends on what people have donated. But it makes me want to go to the library and grab some seeds, because the other thing is like sustainability can also mean if it's cost efficient. And for me, I definitely would be dabbling a little bit. And so maybe I don't want to invest in like a ton, but like grabbing a small planter box and like trying some of the seeds from the library. Or maybe you can start a seed swap at your own company or with your friend group, right? Or at book club. And that would be like a really sustainable, cost-friendly way of maybe kind of getting into the water and testing it, right?
Yeah, definitely. And that was one of the reasons why we did it. And also just building community of like-minded employees. And they were able to kind of meet up and talk about their gardens and share tips and tricks amongst each other, as well as get to try some seeds, like you said, in a sustainable, cost-efficient way. And also, seeds only have a certain lifespan to them usually.
Okay.
So they usually have expiration dates.
I don't think I realized that.
And when you buy a bag of seeds, there's like hundreds of them in there, and you definitely don't need hundreds of green bean plants.
No.
So if you can use what you need and then pass that along to other people that can use them as well, that way you're not wasting anything. Everybody gets to enjoy a little bit of it, and you're also just sharing and building that community and help spread that word. And I think that's really important too, because sustainability looks different to everyone.
It does, but I really love what you said too about just building community, right? So if you didn't know, Proterra literally means for the earth, which is a really fun name, I think, for us, because I think to everybody that works here, if you ask them what sustainability means to them, it might mean something a little bit different, but we are all here kind of driving the same mission forward. We're powering the shift to a more sustainable future. And that doesn't mean just building batteries out of the plant behind me, but it also means building community. It means maybe we have a salsa garden and we start small and we expand. It means that we have this really cool composting program, and we have really cool employee ideas all the time about other ways that we can even be more sustainable. And so I just love the aspect that this also kind of builds community. It kind of builds almost like a friendship and other things outside of just the office.
It does, yeah. And that's one of my favorite things about working here. Is I grew up around sustainability. My grandpa was a farmer.
Oh, I love that.
Back in the 40s and 50s, before anybody even knew what sustainability was. And his biggest thing that he passed on to us as kids growing up was leave it better than you found it. So no matter what that means to you, just carry that forward and do the best that you can.
I love that so much. Well, thank you so much, Lea, for your insights. And I hope you guys have enjoyed this little Earth Day kind of special on High Powered Insights. And we'll see you next time.